is making things happen. I'm Hanisha Lalwani. Welcome to my show. I am so pleased to introduce you to my guest today, Devanjali Rishi. Devanjali is a director at Michael Page, a FTSE-listed global recruitment consultancy. With over 12 years of recruitment experience across the Middle East and North America, Devanjali began her career as an intern at Michael Page in Dubai and became the first intern to progress to director level in the region. Now based in New York, Devanjali specializes in executive level recruitment and leads teams hiring executive level finance, accounting, sales, and marketing roles across sectors like consumer goods, retail, consultancies, and business services. Born and raised in India, Devanjali is driven by her passion for building genuine relationships in a fast paced transactional world. When not working, you'll find her on the hunt for the coziest coffee shops or maintaining a 15-week Pilates streak. Welcome to my show, Devanjali.
Thanks, Anisha. We've been planning this for months, so I'm so happy we can finally do this.
Absolutely. So happy to have you here. Devanjali, in the years that we've known each other, we've gone from being colleagues to friends. But if you remember, we first met back in 2018 when you were one of the 6, 7, or 8 people that interviewed me for the marketing manager role at the Michael Page Dubai office. And I remember you really stood out to me. You gave me great positive vibes. And I remember thinking how impressed I was with you as a woman in recruitment, which back then I knew was still quite male dominated. So I'm really excited to present your story, your career journey to the listeners of my podcast.
No, thanks so much. And I remember that interaction as well. And I was really excited because I think it was the first time we were hiring someone who came not from a recruitment background. And you just had so many ideas and so many different point of views. And I think that's why we've kind of stuck together as well over the years. And like you said, we've become friends. So I'm excited. I'm excited to do this with you.
Thank you. So I'm gonna, sort of start off by asking you. You finished your bachelor's in business administration, and then you chose to do your MBA in human resources. I typically love asking my guests, like, what prompted their decisions for the master's or their bachelor's degrees that they pursue. So, what is it about HR that appealed to you when you were still a student?
So it's interesting because I've never really thought out my, education background or my career choices as very, planned or taking me into a certain direction. Why I chose HR was, if I'm being very honest, process of elimination. I said, okay, finance is very numbers driven. I'm not a very numbers person. Marketing is very creative. I don't know if I'm that creative. And then HR was the third option our college offered. And I always knew I was good with people. And, you read about what HR is all about in the first year of MBA. So once I kind of understood what the topics were, I went as far as to not only do my or major in HR in MBA, but I was also planning to do a PhD in organizational development and employee engagement because I started enjoying it. So it wasn't a very conscious choice to do HR, but I ended up liking it a lot and the topics that came with it.
And I like the honesty of that because a lot of people, when I was a student, just knew what their interest was. And I also did not know that. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I
Yeah.
wanted to do a lot of other things like become a shoe designer or an animation artist. But of course, like, as Indians, we don't have exposure to the more creative professions, at least back in your and my time.
True.
So even for me, landing in marketing was a process of elimination. So I'm so glad that you're honest about that, because it's a bit reassuring. And then I know that after you did your MBA in HR, you had a brief stint with Infosys in the HR function, and then you joined Michael Page in Dubai as a recruitment intern. How
Mhm.
did this opportunity come about? And even today, recruitment is not typically someone's first choice of career, or it's not a top of mind career choice. So, talk to me about that internship with Michael Page that then set you off into the industry.
Yeah, I mean, and you're so right. And I bet if we asked like 100 recruiters how they, came across being recruiters or entered this profession, 99 of them would say we fell into it. And I'm no different.
Correct.
I came to, UAE, and um, and maybe some people will relate to this, but to enter the UAE job market is not easy.
Correct.
People are applying from within the country, outside the country. It's a very hot spot, and people want to be there. And it was no different. What, 12 years back when I
Hmm.
was there, and every job I was applying to said they wanted UAE work experience.
Right.
And it's the whole chicken and egg situation. If someone doesn't give you a job, then how do you get the UAE work experience?
Correct.
So it took me a few months, and then I remember one of my friends mentioned that Michael Page does this internship program, and they run it for 3 months. It's highly competitive.
Hmm.
And I decided to just give it a shot. What I was aware of was it is not an HR job, which a lot of people think. Like, even till
Yes.
date, some people will say, "Oh, you're in HR," and I say, "Well, recruitment is a part of it, but I would say it's more business development. There's a lot of strategy involved, and it's not purely just HR at all." And that was the first thing I was told when I interviewed for Michael Page. And here is where, sometimes, did I know when I was interviewing for the position this would be my career for what is now going to be 12 years?
Hmm.
No. But this is how sometimes people influence you. And I remember going into my first interview, it was with a female director. Her name's Helen Carter.
Hmm.
She's been inspirational for me all my life, and I just sat there. She asked me a bunch of questions. I didn't know how to answer them. I was just being myself, and I just came out of that interview being impressed and going like, I want to be her one day. That was it.
Nice.
That was my takeaway. I said, I will work in this company, I will work
Hmm.
super hard, and I will become her one day. And I got a call Sunday evening. I still remember I was with my grandparents and my parents shopping at Ace Hardware, and I got a call, and she was like, "Yep, you can join from Monday." And I was like, "This is it. I'm going to give this my blood, sweat, and tears, but I'm going to try and make a career out of here." So yeah, so it was. I think it was the people that I interviewed with. It was, of course, a good brand name, etc., and just the passion and the fire to get a job and do well
Hmm.
and prove myself.
Right. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that. Because you're so right. Sometimes it's chance, it's the people you meet, it's what your friend, told you about. It's so many things coming together that sort of sets you into a career path that you never fathomed or thought about. But clearly for you, it's been a choice that's worked.
Mhm.
You've been at Michael Page ever since. It's been what, 12 years now, working
Yeah.
with the same company. It's quite a rarity in today's times, that kind of tenure. Um, and I also have to share with my audience that you are one of the first people in the Middle East and Africa region to have grown from intern to director position. Very commendable. What would you say has worked for you in order to achieve this career progression, this impressive ride up the career ladder?
Um, Thank you. Yes, I do actually, take pride in that, because the internship program was introduced maybe two batches before me. So it did start off as an experiment. So the fact that, I've managed to make something of it is something I hold very dearly to myself. Um, I feel the reason, why I stuck around and why I climbed up the ladder was purely because I enjoyed the job. I
Hmm.
really enjoyed the job. I love what I do. No one day was the same. And I'm someone who always needs, things to happen, things to be fast paced. So the job was really, really interesting to me. And and then honestly, the second factor was people. It
Hmm.
was just it's so much fun just walking into a Michael Page office. And for a lot of people who've not been part of the company, it's very difficult to understand, but we form some of the deepest friendships. Like, look at you and I now, like, who would have thought? We've both been on our life journeys, but there is something about the company culture where everyone looks out for each other. It's you against the market every day. So who do you turn back to? The people
Hmm.
that you work with. um I've had some of my best life trips, vacations with people from Michael Page. All my stories are, I would say, 90% with people from Michael Page. So I think the people, the culture, the work itself really drove me. And also, somewhere, I think just I wanted to do well and I want to do well. And I think that is something very intrinsic. It has to come from inside
Yeah.
to go up the ladder. So yeah, I think all those factors really contributed to it.
And having worked with the company for 6 years, I can completely attest to the culture as well. I
Yeah.
think as a marketer, I remember my first few months being a bit of a shock because it's such a different kind of an environment where everyone loves what they do. They're so passionate about what they do. But there's also a certain kind of personality in that room, like everyone is a strong personality. Um, and so driven by the job itself. But once I got the hang of it and I understood, the industry itself, the job itself, I think as a marketer, I just loved being around recruiters and the energy of recruiters. I wanted to really do my best to make you guys recruit the best people. There is some energy in that office. I can completely agree to that. But having said that, Devanjali, there are lots of misconceptions about recruiters and recruitment companies. Um, for instance, the one I always hear about is that recruiters are famous for ghosting candidates. There are lots of misconceptions, and sometimes these misplaced perceptions could have possibly been a barrier to you as a more purpose-driven, conscious recruiter. Could you talk about the misconceptions and then how you managed to kind of navigate that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the misconceptions are different in, I think, different locations. So
Hmm.
let me first delve into what the UAE market or the Middle East market is. um the the volume is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Every job that you have, you post online, you'll get thousands of applicants, whether they're relevant for the job or not. You
Yeah.
have them. But apart from that, Hanisha, because I'd been in the market for so long, I'd worked there for almost 10 years, I also had a very strong network of people that I already knew about, and I
Mhm.
already knew that they would be good for the job. However, when you have a job and like 20 people, you probably can, only put forward six people. So you try and see who's going to be the best fit. And because of that volume and new people approaching you and your old network also trying to reach out to you, I'll be honest, I've also been guilty about ghosting people. And
Mm.
that's not, and I actually am one of those people who really wants to keep in touch with everyone and make sure everyone's happy and tell them that, hey, I still think about you. I'm still I still have you in my mind. In fact, at the moment, I can still think of two or three people from the Middle East who've messaged me and I've not got back to them, but it's in my mind and I'm like, okay, I have to get back to them. Um, and that happens. And it is so um like you can spend hours and hours and hours getting back to people, but then you will not get anything done.
Yeah.
So I think that misconception is kind of true. You as a candidate can get ghosted. um but the trick, I think, and I've learned this from other candidates, is just keeping in touch.
Mm,
Even if you once formed a network or a relationship with a recruiter, just keeping in touch, even if they don't get back to you, it always plays on your mind. You see their name on LinkedIn, you see their
mm,
messages, their emails, and it still keeps, the memory afresh. So I think that is a misconception which can sometimes be true. The flip side is, when I moved to New York, and the American market, it is not as candidate heavy. So we don't get as many applicants, and it is on us to make those relationships with candidates. So I don't think candidates usually get ghosted here, or if they do, I mean, that's on the recruiters, how they want to deal with their jobs. But I know that here I try and maintain every relationship that I can.
mm.
I think the misconception here is, oh, everyone's just very commission hungry.
Right.
And that is why, it becomes more of a phone up down conversation. It's a very transactional market. So people, so sometimes people are not able to trust recruiters because they're
Mm,
like, okay, once come, the other one will come as well. Like, there are plenty of fish in the sea. And I feel that because of the transactional nature, people are not able to trust their career decisions with recruiters. And yes, are some agencies commission based? Probably. But a few, and like Michael Page, are not commission based.
yeah.
And then what that helps me do personally, and I'm pretty sure a lot of my colleagues, is try and keep those relationships, actually make a difference in someone's life. Like, I've moved people globally into roles, and
Mm,
when I still see them in some of the jobs, it's a matter of pride. And
correct.
it is not a phone up down transactional nature, then, right? You form meaningful relationships. Like, I just had my birthday, and so many of my candidates wished me, but like, having
Wow.
that network and having it personalized, because at this level, then if you're asking for someone to make a move in their career, it needs to be meaningful and impactful. Like, it is such a big part of your life. So
Correct.
I think people don't realize that recruiters are trying to make that impact. They're trying to form that relationship. But somewhere, because sometimes in a market like America, you can just have a lot of recruiters, it's very difficult to form those long term relationships, I think. And that's one of the misconceptions I specifically feel here.
It's you've experienced two completely different scenarios in Dubai and in New York, which gives you such a well-rounded experience. But I think that some of these misconceptions also stem from the lack of understanding or awareness of what the recruiter's job actually is. So could you
Mhm.
share what a day-to-day looks like in a recruiter's job?
Yeah, it's what I always tell, and especially when I'm hiring people for my team or for our company, is you have to be good at multitasking,
Mm,
because no day is the same, and different things will be at different stages of recruitment process. So a typical day would be, you'd be probably working on 10 recs with 10 different companies, and
sorry, when you say
each.
Rex, what do you mean?
Ooh, okay, so 10 jobs that companies will give us. So um, you might be recruiting for in finance, because that's what I've done most of my life. Is you could be recruiting for a financial accountant, a financial controller, finance manager, and they might just be with all different companies. So
Mm.
we'd be recruiting. So our client could be, a big CPG company, it could be a retail company, it could be an oil and gas company. So you are managing 10 different positions for 10 different companies
Right.
at 10 different stages. So you
Correct.
come in and you have to make sure all your clients are updated, all your candidates are updated, all your interviews are being looked after. Are candidates attending those interviews? Oh, the client is sick. Now you have to, shift the interviews to another day.
Hmm.
um, the client has interviewed all your candidates and said, no, actually, I'm going to now change the job brief and I'm going to make the role a bit more senior, a bit more junior. So now you have
Yeah.
to go back and you have to, speak to more candidates. So the art of the job, or the way the job is you are always multitasking. You are reaching out to your candidates to make sure they're interested in the jobs that you have for them, and at the same time you're also reaching out to your clients to ensure that you're servicing your jobs well, but also to make sure that you get jobs for the next week or the next month. So I also always tell people and give them a heads up that it is a sales driven role.
Hmm.
um, you have to make sure that you're calling your clients, existing or new, pitching yourself. Why should they use you as a recruiter? What is the value add that you will have in a client's life, in a candidate's life?
Hmm.
So that you can ensure that these 10 jobs that you have today is the same amount of work that you have for the next coming weeks and months. So that you can just help out with as many jobs as possible. So a lot of multitasking, a lot of outbound activity, both on the client side and the candidate side, um, and always ensuring that you're there to make sure that the processes are as watertight as possible, but being aware that things will go wrong, because they do,
Hmm.
because you deal with people. So things don't always go the way you plan, and being ready to be on the front foot with things.
And I completely, I can share very openly that even when I started working at Michael Page, it was such an eye opener of what a recruiter does, because you guys are not just CV pushers. You are consultants in the true sense of the word. Like, it's ultimately talent that drives any organization's growth. So the people that you bring into the business, I mean, that comes from you guys, and how you have that knack for identifying the right talent. What is it that the company needs to go from this level to another level? What sort of skills do you then need to fuel that growth? You are consulting the client on all of these aspects. You're not just sending them CVs. So that was quite an eye opener for me, and it's such a varied job. It's not your typical sales job. There is such a huge people element in this. And like you said, a job is such a big part of anyone's life. So that's where you guys are playing a role. So it's a very varied function, and there's so much purpose behind it. So thank you for sharing that aspect of it as well. Um, Now, having been myself as a marketer within Michael Page for 6 years, I know very clearly that the recruitment industry and a recruiter's job is so dependent on so many external variables, right? Today, you could be dealing with the recession, hiring budget cuts. There are so many aspects that could impact the day to day of your job. How do you navigate really challenging periods of the job market when companies simply are conservative with their hiring? I mean, if we think back to the COVID period, right? Complete hiring freezes.
Yes.
How do you navigate these low periods?
It's all about what you do before such periods hit you, that
Hmm.
see you through a difficult time like COVID, or a recession, or even just like a plateau that at least we are facing here in America with the elections and everything coming up. Things have slowed down till people can see, okay, what the new government will look
Yeah.
like. um, I think it's, and what kept us afloat I think globally is what I understand from different leaders of our business, is relying on the relationships that you've built, you've successfully, cultivated over years. Because even in a tough period, people will need talent, whether the talent is different in terms of, okay, we have supply chain issues, so maybe we need someone who solved supply chain issues
Mm.
before, or okay, we need to digitize everything because
Correct.
AI is the new thing. So instead of hiring a finance director, you're now hiring a finance transformation leader to transform your finance functions.
Mm.
So the economy may have peaks and troughs, but the requirements will change,
Right.
um, based on what is the pain point for the economy. Um, and at that point, yes, you may not, the volume may decrease of the kind of work you're doing, but you will still have work. It'll just depend on who is trusting you to find talent for you. And the way you build trust is, it's the old, proof is in the pudding. So hopefully you worked and you've done a good job in the years or months that follow this period. And people then go like, okay, if I need a technical person or if I need a really niche search, I can reach out to XYZ
Right. And
and
I think
make sure.
also, if I can interject to say
Yeah,
that
yeah.
uh, during the lull periods, it's easy to feel demotivated, especially as a salesperson, right? You are not always billing, your revenue numbers are not always reflecting. So I think also the important aspect is to have that long-term bird's eye view, that if you keep your activity levels high, eventually it will culminate into jobs, into placements. Am I right? Because of course the motivation levels also get affected during these low periods.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I remember during COVID, I barely had a job or two to work on.
Hmm.
But my aim was to try and talk to as many people as possible, get to know as many people. All that volume that was coming towards you. Like I finally had time to like sift through and
Right.
actually
Hmm.
speak to people. So yes, so hitting your what we like to call KPIs or key performance indicators, which are essentially how many people on the candidate side and the client side can you speak to, how much
Hmm.
more market knowledge can you gain as well,
Right.
what are different companies doing. Because like you rightly said, Hanisha, this job, and especially at my current company, we are not CV pushers. So a lot of people just sometimes come to us for what are competitors doing,
Correct.
what are the
Yes.
salaries we should
Hmm.
be paying, what is it, where are people growing, or where are they putting up their new shared service functions. And a lot of that just comes from talking to people in the industry. And times like these, if you talk and if you can increase your industry knowledge, you prove
Hmm.
a valuable asset to everyone that you're speaking to. So yeah, I agree. Like speaking and just doing what you're doing and not being demotivated helps. Also, as a leader of the business, I feel a lot of the onus is on the leadership as well. Of
Hmm.
making sure that your team is motivated.
Right.
People have different. I know a lot of people went through a lot of mental health challenges during COVID.
Hmm.
And, it's not always work harder, work more. It can sometimes be just about understanding what someone's going through, being
Right.
empathetic, making sure you do as much as you can to try and, motivate people, talking to them about your own personal experiences.
Hmm.
And making it a bit more humane so that they can also see that, okay, people around them, their leaders, everyone goes through it, and we just pick each other up and go.
Correct. And communicating that we're all in it together. It's not you on your own. It's all of us in the same ship, navigating uncharted territory together in the recruitment industry. So thanks for again being honest about, it's not always a high. Like any industry, like in life, there are always the highs and the lows, and I think that's very important for people to know at the outset. if they're stepping into this industry as a career. Now, I can't have a skilled, highly experienced recruiter on my show and not ask some questions that could possibly help someone that is navigating the job search. We know how tough the economies around the world is at this moment. We know how competitive the job market is. Especially if you speak about the Dubai job market, you spoke about this earlier. On average, any job that is advertised here is getting nothing less than 1,000 applications, right? How do you identify the right candidate in a sea of applications? Because this is a mystery to a lot of people out there, especially job seekers.
So it there are a lot of factors, but if I had to put like the top three factors into play, um, it is the art of writing a CV and
Hmm.
making it, extremely to the point, very clean, crisp, easy to read. Um, I think I used to get like a lot of CVs, and people have questions about should I put a photograph on it or not, or should I put columns and should I put logos?
Hmm.
And honestly, none of that. Just a clean, crisp CV with, what your experience is, what your roles and responsibilities are, highlight some of your achievements, and that's it. And not making it too many pages to read. I think that always helps. Um, so having a good CV is really valuable. I think the second thing is just networking, Hanisha.
Hmm.
Just it is, how many people can you speak to? How many people can you message? Um, how many people are you able to set up networking meetings with? And I think that as a skill, if I can, like, is very easy to do in Dubai because I have seen that people are more open to taking calls. Will something come off it? We don't know, but people will always at least, take a call, or
Hmm.
you reach out to 100 people in UAE, maybe, 10, 20 people will respond and will say, hey, okay, send me your CV or let's meet for a cup of coffee.
Correct.
Um, versus in North America, I think it's double. You have to maybe reach out to 200 people to set up those 10 coffees or those 10 points of contact. But
Wow.
networking is so, so important in building your own brand. And you just don't know where it will go from there, right? So you meet person A, the person A likes you, remembers you, but doesn't have anything, speaks to person B, C, D. The person D suddenly goes like, wait, I met this person maybe a few months back, and then somewhere you will stick and your experience will stick. So networking becomes really, really important. Um, and then finally, I think it's also self screening yourself for the opportunities that you're applying for. Um, I think a lot of times what I used to face in Dubai is, um, and I don't blame people, it does become difficult and you want to apply for as many things as
Correct.
possible. But then sometimes you can also develop a reputation for, do you really know where your skill sets are, and or are you just blindly applying to things? Are you being cautious about that? And I think if people can self screen looking at the job description and going like, I'm not saying you need to do 100% of the things, but some things and main core skill sets should match for you to apply for a particular job. So I think those three factors, if you have it with you, then with the sheer, you know, passion, drive, and also motivating yourself, having that resilience, because you will face a lot of no's, you will face a lot
Correct.
of ghosting, and a lot of like you feel like everything's going into a black hole. So
Yeah.
just having that resilience as well and doing it as many times as required till someone comes back to you, I think is the key.
Correct. And I think it's about doing multiple things at the same time in order to get that perfect job. It's not just networking. It's not just applying. It's not just networking and applying. It's also doing other things alongside. I think trying different things, also living your life outside of your job search is
Yes.
very important because when you're living your life, you're also meeting and interacting with new people. So it's not just networking in the professional sense. I would say, from a personal experience, it's networking outside of your work hours, in the gym, in the yoga class, as you pursue your hobbies. You just never know who you may meet, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's about doing a combination of things. And like you said, you've got to be so resilient, because a job search process can take months on end. And I always tell, people I know who are looking for jobs, like, take a break. You deserve that bit of a pause sometimes, to reset and re-energize and come back to the process, especially because it can be such an overwhelming process.
Yeah.
But also, I think I want to reiterate what you also said, is don't just use the spray and then pray approach. Like,
Yeah.
really filter. Do you envision yourself actually in the day to day of that job? Like, does that really align with your values? And I tend to adopt that quite a bit in when I am in that situation where I'm looking for jobs. I literally try to envision myself in that position, and sometimes I have to be honest with myself and say, Hanisha, come on, you're not going to like it. So let's give, the recruiter and myself that time of not applying to this job.
Yeah, that's true. We've all been guilty of that.
Yeah, right. Let's just have a bit of an honest chat with yourself.
Yeah. But
What?
can I
Yeah,
also say, like, and I think I read it somewhere, or there was a study that we as women also, we think a lot and we go like, oh, if we can't do 100% of the job, let's not apply.
yeah,
We only have 80% of the skill sets. Whereas men will look at a job description and they'll say 60% I can do the job and with my eyes closed. So we also have to, sometimes go like, okay, if you think you can do a job and it'll add, and there is some part of the job which will be an added value and you will learn, still apply for that job.
absolutely, absolutely. I want to then ask you, what have you seen companies get wrong with their hiring?
Uh, I think the biggest thing is everyone wants a plug and play.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
So they want, okay, have you done the same job for X amount of years at a competitor, for example?
yeah.
And then, great, now copy paste that in our organization. The things that people, I think, may not take into account is your organization may not be run in the same way as the previous organization. And then secondly, what is the added value for, you know, um, for that person to join your organization? So they always think of, okay, what is the value that this person gets us? But they don't know, like the employer will be like, okay, but how are we enriching the job for this person? I think that is the biggest problem.
I'm so glad you say that, because I think nothing frustrates me more when, even as a candidate, you're pigeonholed to one industry.
Yeah.
There's so much you can bring when you switch industries. And that's what fuels innovation. That's what drives, new creative ideas entering a new business. So I'm so happy with your answer. um, as a female leader in recruitment, Devanjali, how have you seen the industry evolve to be more inclusive? Because I know that it's a lot more inclusive today than it was
Yes.
previously.
Oh, 100%. 12 years back, it was a whole different story.
Hmm.
The industry has evolved a lot. I think, I mean, I'll give you an example. New York for us is the regional headquarters for North America. Um, our director group, which is essentially the leaders for different subsets of teams that we have here, 100% of them are women. And
Right.
I'm coming from a place where when 12 years back I joined this company, 90% of them were men. So you can just see how things have changed and
Correct.
grown. I think people are making more of a cautious effort of investing in female talent, um, and diversity in general. I think people are a bit more cautious about that. Um, what I feel really helped me, and I know a few of my colleagues who are in similar positions, is the training. And sometimes you just need a bit more training, um, to upskill people who, may not come from like big recruitment firms or may not come from like similar backgrounds. I think that's true for all D&I purpose. Like you train more, you upskill people, and
Hmm.
then you give them a platform. So I feel like training and what's the right word? And cheerleaders for you. You people
Yeah,
who support you, who want you
correct.
to do well. If you don't have cheerleaders, and I was lucky because my boss in Dubai, who was my boss for like almost 10 years, Adam, he was genuinely a cheerleader for me, and he would go like, and someone who can highlight what you are doing, what you've done, because it also becomes like, a bit of putting spotlight on talent. So yeah, I think those things are really really important and have changed the way, um, our leadership has become more inclusive in recruitment in
Hmm.
general. And I see that also with a lot of other companies now in Dubai as well, a lot of other recruitment firms. A lot of my friends went into recruitment and joined boutique agencies, and you
Hmm.
see, they're doing such good work and recruiting C-level talent, and
Yeah.
working with some of the biggest government entities in Saudi. Like it's so good to see.
Yeah, the change has been visible. And I couldn't agree more about, having cheerleaders in the workplace, because you could work as hard as you can, but if there's not someone that's really backing you and spotlighting your work, um, it doesn't help your advancement. You've got to have people to support and advance your growth. Um, and that brings me to my next question. The generation entering the workforce today, they have a reputation of being job hoppers, moving from company to company, job to job, sometimes not demonstrating that level of patience, but always looking for that ultimate opportunity where their interest or passion lies. As a director that has a lot of experience managing people and teams, how are you nurturing the young talent today?
So, very interesting question. I wish I could tell you I have the secret sauce,
Hmm.
but we are still trying to, figure things out. The number one thing, and what a lot of people don't realize, is that the Gen Z that is now entering the workplace was in college when COVID hit.
Right.
And for jobs which are very people oriented, and which require social skills and social etiquettes, I'm not saying they don't have it, but their exposure that you get in a college when you're with 300, 3,000 people, whatever it um, is a bit more limiting than what maybe you and I've had. So we have to remember that in a lot of cases, even if people have the tools and they have the personality, there's a lot of upskilling in softer skills,
I
um,
see.
for the new generation. So I think that is where a lot of our time goes, to just make
Hmm.
people feel comfortable. And a lot of it is on the job, showing them how we deal with people day in day out. Um, to a certain extent, it is also good for a lot of the younger generation, candidates who come through our doors, to experience, is recruitment for you or not? And then if it's not, then you move on. But I feel like where there is a disconnect sometimes is also patience.
Hmm.
And that will be true for any job. If you
Correct.
tomorrow become a doctor or a lawyer, like you
Yeah.
need to have patience in a particular
Mm.
career to understand whether you're going to be good at it or not.
Yeah.
And it's years of practice, and again, like I've been saying, developing relationships and seeing if you actually enjoy and if you're successful at something. And I don't think people are giving themselves enough time to
Yeah.
understand if they're going to be good at this job or not.
Mm.
And then what will end up happening is it's good to explore different careers and understand if something makes sense. Like if you absolutely don't like it and you don't want to deal with people, then that's a very different story. But if you think you're good at it and you do kind of enjoy it, give it time before moving on to the next thing. Because if you then keep doing that throughout the start of your career, there will be no base, and your understanding of what you like and don't like, or what you're good at and you're not good at, would not would not come from a place of actually giving something a try.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. It's about patience, it's putting in the time. And I mean, even if I look back at my career, I feel like it takes at least a year to settle in, 2 years to fully understand different aspects of the company, the industry, to network within the company. It takes a lot of time. And I have seen that once I've put in at least 2 years, then I really start getting it. Then I really start thinking, how can I, how can I now add value now that I completely understand the ins and outs of the industry, the company, I know people within the organization. Now I can really make the impact. So I really would advise people to be a bit more patient on the job. And if you like your manager, if you like the people around you, these are also great incentives to have that stickiness factor within the job. um,
100%.
yeah. We have a lot of parallels between you and me, but one
Hmm.
of them is a relocation experience. In 2022, January, when you moved from our Dubai office to the New York office within Michael Page, I moved a few months later from our Dubai office to our London headquarters. I know personally, I've learned so much from the relocation experience. There's so much you can learn culturally. I want to know now, 2 years hence for you. I think it's been more than 2 years that
Yeah.
you've relocated. Um, how has this experience culminated? And I'd also like to ask, has these varied cultural experiences made you a better recruiter?
um Yes, in short, yes, it has definitely made me a better recruiter. It's made me a better person. I call this my character building era.
Yeah,
And Anisha, like I have to give you credit. You are one of the few people, like, we both had our ups and downs, and you've been a constant throughout this journey. So if I don't say it enough, thank you for being there. Um, I think, uh, okay, why did I decide to relocate, right? Because a lot of people ask me that. And um, I honestly, if I look back, the only reason was because I am just so driven to do things and I want to have different opportunities and different experiences, is why I decided to take this decision. There was nothing wrong with my job. There was nothing
correct.
wrong with, my personal life. I had my parents a 3-hour flight from me. I
Yeah,
had great friends, great career, great life. So some would also say, why fix something that's not broken?
yeah,
Uh, but then my counter to that was, how do you then grow in life? And how do you discover what could be or can be,
correct.
as well. So I decided to just take that leap of faith and come to New York. Had no friends, no family, just Michael Page as a known entity. And over the past now almost 3 years, what I've discovered is very different perspectives. So the job remains the same, the core remains the same. To be honest, a lot of the personalities in the Michael Page New York remain the same as what you'd find in Dubai. So um, that at least helped as one factor to keep me grounded, but then everything else changed.
Yeah.
Um, Personal life, Dubai can be a bubble and it can be a very comfortable place to live in versus a place like New York. It really sharpens you around the edges. It makes you a bit more independent. It makes you a bit more, um, if I can use the word, street smart.
Hmm.
Um,
Correct.
it's You meet a lot of different people from different walks of life, and do you do that in Dubai as well? Yes, but I just feel like in Dubai, then everyone starts working together in the same way and living a similar life, depending on what your peer group and friend group becomes. Whereas eh, I've seen that people come from all different walks of life. So even as candidates and clients, then if you're
Hmm.
trying to help people, they have very different views of what
Yeah.
is important to them and what makes sense. And that has helped me become a better recruiter because, again, I think the core part of the job is understanding people and foreshadowing what they may want and how can you add value to them. And the more people I speak to and the more different perspectives I get, the more, at least I feel I'm becoming more aware of how to deal with different kinds of people. So I think the relocation just, it gives you a lot of self confidence as well, because now I feel like, okay, I've done this. Bring on something else. You know, Making everything from scratch, your career from scratch, your network from scratch, your friends from scratch. Um, it helps you sharpen you around the edges. And this is something actually a very senior candidate of mine in Dubai had said. He had said, if you don't have a reason but you're getting the opportunity, go to New York. Don't just stay there for a year or two. Make sure that you have a proper life there and you build a proper circle there, because it will just add so much, so many more facets to your life. And he was so right.
So well said and so well summarized. Because even though I was in London for just 2 years, I always, like you said so correctly, they're character building years, you know? And I always say that London reopened my eyes to the world. It taught me so much because the job was essentially the same. What I was doing at Michael Page in Dubai was essentially, of course, there was that learning curve. There was a huge learning curve. But it is still that stable part of your life, but everything
Mhm.
else outside the work is completely new, building new friendships, creating a new routine. And it really challenges you, right? And like you said, at the other end of it, it's just made me even more confident about my skills, myself, my ability to really thrive in a very unknown or new situation. So you've perfectly rounded that up. And even though I'm back to Dubai, I'm so happy that you're still persisting and really creating that life again for yourself in New York, and just seeing where it goes. I think there's so much power in going with the flow, um because there's definitely it fructifies into something you could not even have imagined. uh I have now my final question. I know you to have a growth mindset. You're always seeking opportunities to learn. What does that now look like at this stage in your career? You're a director. You're now 3 years into your relocation. What does growing or learning look like at this stage in your career?
I mean, I'll always have a passion to, increase my roles and responsibilities at work. So I know I still look forward to doing more, more strategic stuff, adding more markets to, my belt, or looking after bigger teams. That passion will always be there, and I strive for it every day. But I think what has also changed, which I wouldn't have said when I was in my 20s, is I think I now hold more value to what I do in my personal life as well. um, whether it's achieving 100 classes at my Pilates studio, or
So
it is that was a proud moment for me. Or going with my friends for trips, or learning new sports, or just being open to new experiences. Like I don't know if I really like skiing, but I want to give that another chance. So
yeah.
let's see. But just growing more than just professionally is something that now I look forward to. And honestly, I see that around me as well. So
Hmm.
it's not, and I've discovered this with a lot of people who are doing really well in their careers. They'll talk about their job and they'll say, yep, I work in this company and this is my role, these are my roles and responsibilities, but outside work I have family and I have, like, people to support. Also, can you hear the crying baby still?
Yes. What a lovely soundtrack to our conversation.
I don't know, he's really upset. So,
Go on.
yeah. So anyway, yeah. So what I was saying was just the growth mindset just comes from also surrounding yourself with people who like growing. And I
Hmm.
think I've discovered that, and I've discovered people who want to do different things and excel at different things. And they what they say is true. The company that you surround yourself with really matters. And I think that also pushes me to have and grow more.
Couldn't agree more. It's the people that you surround yourself with. It's also what you intrinsically push yourself towards pursuing. And I love that you are at this stage in your career and your life. You're also focusing a lot about what you're doing in your personal time. It's so important because I definitely think that your personal growth will have positive spillover effects into your professional career as well. So, with that, thank you, Devanjali. You are certainly one of those people who knows how to make things happen, who gets things done. So, you are right up there, or you have been right up there as a candidate for a guest on my podcast. And finally, after months of talking about it, we had this interview today. Uh, it doesn't matter if the baby wails in the background or not. And that's today's show. If you like this conversation, please give me a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening to your podcast.